Now for me, a comic becomes a comic when you start putting panels in a sequence. In fact, the art of comics is referred to as sequential art. And sequential art has its own set of theory and practice, just like filmmaking, photography, painting, or any other art form. And to me, this is the definitive textbook for the comic student, Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud. As a teacher, I've given away so many copies of this book. It's short and it's fun to read, and it's brilliant in the way Scott McCloud doles out these heady concepts in a comprehensive and memorable way. Turns out, comics are a great teaching tool. And Scott McCloud's teaching style, his concepts and philosophy, runs through my veins, really. So if you find yourself enjoying my classes, do yourself a favor and hop on the internet and buy this book. But for now, I'm going to review what I feel is the core concept of understanding comics. Mr. McCloud says, there are 5 distinct arenas of choice when planning and drawing a sequence of comic panels. The quality and clarity of a comic's narrative depends on the storyteller's awareness of these 5 distinct arenas. These aren't steps that can be done in a specific order. It's not like a workout routine. It's more of a state of mind, and they're really just small creative processes that a storyteller can consciously or subconsciously use to bounce ideas between until they arrive at a product that suits the story they're telling. If you're not already an artist who draws comics, these creative choices can be a little tricky to understand. So let's review them using a character and a scene. I call this story Edith and the Big Exam. We'll start with the one people skip past most often, and that's choice of moment. Before we put our pencil to paper, we need to ask ourselves, what precise moment in time will best represent Edith's experience? Now, an experienced cartoonist will likely cycle through a series of moments before settling on one. I always start by putting myself in the character's head. I picture Edith in the classroom, sitting rigidly at her desk, her pencil clutched in her hand, the exam paper staring unblinkingly up at her. Now, of course, Edith had studied the night before, or at least she had her textbook open while she was staring at her phone. And now that she's finally in the exam, she starts to doubt if she's really prepared for it. By getting in the character's head, I've familiarized myself with the scenario Edith is in, and I can see a number of distinct moments to work from in this panel. Sometimes I write notes on my ideas or do little sketches just to get them outside of my head. Edith crouched over her desk, sweating. Edith staring up at the clock as she runs out of time. Edith sitting stock still, her eyes darting back and forth to see if anyone can save her. In order to keep your story moving, you need to ask yourself, what will make this moment iconic and memorable? Scott McCloud's next choice is the choice of frame. Now, when you're talking choice of frame, something we didn't discuss in the previous chapter, is that choosing a frame really depends on the narrative voice of the story. To relate it to writing, if the comic is in third-person narrative, the moment will most likely be framed from a safe distance of an omnipresent narrator, an invisible observer. If the comic is first-person, we might move right up into the character's space. We could look through their eyes even. In scenes like this, where a character is in a heightened emotional state, I like to get up close so we can see their body trembling and their forehead sweating. Next, let's talk about choice of image, means actually putting the pencil to paper and drawing something. As these choices of moment and frame flash through our brains, we quickly decide how we want to get the image onto the paper. Consider the purpose of the panel as you're drawing. What purpose does this drawing serve in Edith's story? In this case, I want to show her sense of panic as the end of the exam time approaches. I consider the elements I need to draw: the desk, Edith, the clock, other test-taking students, and I have to decide what to show and what to crop out of this frame. The more panels you draw, the more your illustration style will adapt to the restrictions of the panel. Heavy detail can muddy the clarity of a panel, and repetition can be time-consuming. So comic art is often more sparse than other illustrative forms. While choosing your image and putting it on paper, you have to keep in mind the next arena of panel design, and that is choice of word. My rule of thumb in visual storytelling is only tell what you can't show. And that's not a hard and fast rule, that's just my stylistic choice. So if you're a noisy storyteller, you might show Edith talking to herself. Maybe you include some text or a little sound effect. If you're a quiet and subtle storyteller, you could show Edith's inner turmoil through her face and body language and cartoonish emoting. For the last choice, we have to zoom out a bit and talk about the choice of flow. Up until now, we're looking at the first panel in what would be a sequence of panels to tell a story. And the way all your panels relate to each other affects the narrative flow. Now that we're thinking about the choices a comic artist makes, let's head to the next chapter to see the different ways panel flow affects Edith's story.